All right. Welcome back to the Michael Sisco Show. And joined by the big leagues here today, Vincent James, who's going to have to learn to deal with my tech issues that I always have in the beginning of my show. How do I sound, Vincent?
It sounds good. A little scratchy at first. Looks like it's coming in loud and clear right now, though.
Okay, good. My internet's not the greatest, so
no worries.
But it is
we all
have
those tech issues, right?
And then since I don't have 1,000 subs yet, I have to rely on Entropy, which I always set up in the beginning of the show. So,
awesome.
Good times. It looks. I skipped with Dr. E. Michael Jones. I was like, I want this to be super formal and nice, but you're just one. You're not quite E. Michael Jones yet. So.
Well, I'll take that either. I could take that either way, but whatever. It's all good. What's going on? How's things been?
Pretty good. Moved back to temporarily to Maryland after leaving a certain campaign I was working on, which we can't say because I'm still on the FEC report, so don't bring that up.
No worries.
But I'm still going to be slightly involved during the general, but I get to move to where I want to move, which is going to be West Virginia.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Hang on, Entropy's almost up. Somebody says stream is glitching out. Well,
I don't see it on my end. It looks okay on my end.
Yeah, I think it depends on what platform. Hang on, there's me boomer teching. All right, cool.
You probably have to turn it down. You probably have to automatically turn down the quality of the stream, but you know, it's all good.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm done with my little boomer tech moments. We're good. So, oh man, we have quite a crowd today. Look, you bring the goods, Vince. You bring the goods. Look at that. This is big for me. 20 on a live stream. That's big. That's big leagues for Michael Sisco. So, but welcome to the Michael Sisco Show. And yeah, so yeah, we did have a lost episode on my old podcast, Hearth and Fire, that you were gracious enough to come on that, and then it never actually got published. So it's good to have you back for a redo.
Thanks for inviting me back.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you. Now we did eventually. I want to get into the YouTube and the ADL stuff, but one thing I did want to cover from that episode, actually, and I know you don't have a bunch of time. I asked you a question on what it meant to be a paleoconservative, and I thought your answer was pretty interesting. Because according to the ADL, you're a white supremacist. So could you please clarify? Could you clarify?
Yeah, not a white supremacist. A white supremacist would mean exactly what it says that it means, right? That you feel that you are supreme to all other racial and ethnic categories, that whites are supreme in every single way to all other racial and ethnic categories. But of course, you know, it's interesting. They don't really say the same thing about people who claim that blacks are superior athletically, or some of the researchers or some of the scientific papers that claim these sorts of things. They don't really seem to have the same feeling towards that, and just like they don't really seem to have the same feeling towards the people who are, as far as the ADL is concerned, the people who are actually physically attacking Jews in the streets more often than anyone else, and that would be, of course, Black Americans. Of course, they don't really seem to mention that, even though they are the defender of the Jewish people, the ADL. So very, very big double standard there. Yeah, people are saying it's flashing back and forth black screen. I don't know. It's not doing that for me. I'm watching the feed right now. It's not doing that for me. So,
well, I sent them the DLive link just in case. So there are multiple places to watch this. So if YouTube gives us issues, then there's other options, guys. Other options. So you can also watch through the Entropy link, which is in the description as well. So, yeah, but you did also you kind of got into some pre-Enlightenment idea, like you were talking about how part part of what makes you paleoconservative is your rejection of the Enlightenment. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, what I was talking about was if we look at the founding fathers, they are liberals. The founding fathers are liberals, and if we're talking about conservatism as a philosophy, we have to look pre the Enlightenment period. And honestly, we can just look at a couple of paleoconservatives, modern paleoconservatives. We can look at Patrick Buchanan, a couple of others, and what they were pushing for, what they stood for. And I would say my views align a lot more strongly along the lines of sort of like the modern paleoconservatives like Patrick Buchanan and others, where they are, I'll just lay out my views on foreign policy. America first foreign policy. Now, this is not to say that I don't think that we should do what's best for America in terms of, some remaining an empire, having control over certain regions that are of our interest. I know that in reality that we have to do certain things, but America first on foreign policy, America first on trade. We must remain America first on trade. Social issues are a big one for me. I mean, it's just a matter of what you really want to discuss, like what particular policy position you really want to discuss, so I can describe it a little bit better.
No, I think that's interesting. Because I know
some people are still saying that it keeps flashing. I don't know. I don't see that. Let me refresh here. Let me see. Maybe it's people that are coming in right now.
It might be just might be a YouTube. It seems like a YouTube issue.
Yeah, I don't see it on my end.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're good. It looks good.
I'm paying attention to the chat here, but some people are saying it's fine. So,
yeah, who knows? Maybe it's just specific users. I don't know, but I think we're good because it goes out to 5 platforms. While I was interviewing Dr. Jones, the DLive crashed. There wasn't a whole lot I could do about it. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. But no, I mean it's kind. I saw a meme the other day that I think was made by a leftist, but they were trying to portray Antifa, like the rioters, as the revolutionaries and the revolution, like the Tea Partiers, and all of us who are standing for law and order as the kind of the Brits, which I thought was ironic because I was kind of like, well, yeah, sort of.
Well, I mean, we can just look at what's going on right now. So I was just talking about this on my show earlier on the stream. It's like we look at like this Cuties movie. I don't know if you've seen much about that right now, but some clips are coming out, and the Parents' Guide came out, and they're trying to like censor the Parents' Guide. They're trying to hide the Parents' Guide to not bring attention to it, and to also make it seem like people are sharing fake news on social media when they share a screenshot of the Parents' Guide for this Cuties movie. And we see a lot of these people in the mainstream media, a lot of people on the left who are defending this, saying that it's actually supposed to be the opposite of what you're portraying it to be. And we've had a lot of conservatives for the longest time, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, others, who say that we shouldn't really have a reactionary mindset towards these sorts of things. We shouldn't call for Drag Story Hour to be banned in libraries. We shouldn't try to use the government or take control of the government in order to ban certain things in our society that we consider morally objectionable. But the truth of the matter is that their fear of the government possibly using this against us in the future, or the left possibly using this against us in the future, is completely illegitimate when you consider the fact that the government is already using the left is already using the government against us. The left is also using corporations who a lot of these monopolies, social media, and otherwise, who I consider even more powerful than the federal government against us right now. And so this is only going to continue down this path and get worse and worse and worse in terms of like the culture war that Charlie Kirk quite intelligently deemed labeled his culture war tour. It's only going to get worse until we have a mindset like that of a reactionary mindset, where we're calling for these things to be banned. We're calling to use the power of the government to ban these sorts of things. We're speaking out against this. It doesn't affect my life, and just do it if it feels good. Way of thinking. This I would consider conservative. I would consider this conservative, reactionary, whatever. But it's definitely not conservative to say that we shouldn't regulate morality, because for much of American history, for most of American history, actually just up until 60s, 70s, we did regulate morality in media, in Hollywood, in daily life, in our daily lives. And so, this would be one of the things that I would bring up to describe my position on conservatism and what being conservative means.
Yeah, it almost seems like we basically lost the culture war, and suddenly libertarianism was the the establishment's go-to.
Right. I mean, I
That
think
makes
a
any
lot of
sense.
the mainstream conservatives nowadays are just that. That's why we call them conservatarians. Conservatarians. They are libertarians. They are libertarians in every way, almost, except in name, under the guise of conservatism. There are some that are better than others on social issues, but for the most part, they basically have the same position on a lot of different things.
Yeah. So I think a guy named Dave asked a fairly good question that pretty much sums that all up. But no need to repeat that here. But your YouTube was recently shut down. Do you have any idea what led to that? Were you expecting it? Did you see it coming?
Well, I was on the ADL list, so I did sort of see it coming, and that's why I've been building up Subscribestar and DLive. Now I do the show live every day, Monday through Friday, around 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. And then also, we have all the daily videos posted to BitChute every day. But I've been building those platforms up for the past few months in the, just if YouTube was banned or I was permanently deleted from YouTube, which did happen. So there are a lot of clip channels out there, though, that are posting content. So
yeah, so you were ready for it. So that's good. Did it hurt? Did it still hurt?
Yeah, it did. I don't say I was. I don't think I was. I won't say I was ready for it, but I was I was better off than a lot of people were when they get banned from major platforms.
Okay. Yeah, I figure since
I was
I'm just
expecting it to happen eventually, but I was just hoping that I can hold out until after the election. I was hoping I could hold out until after November 3rd, but didn't happen. 90 days short, just about.
Well, we're getting you back on YouTube tonight, so here you are, live on YouTube with flashing, apparently. So
yeah, I don't see it on my end. Someone says flinching like crazy, almost unwatchable. I don't see it on my end, but whatever.
Yeah, I guess it depends on where you are. Maybe YouTube has specific electorate areas that they're trying to ban us from. So
right,
who knows? Who knows what's up with that? So one thing I find, I'm curious, the ADL fascinates me. The SPLC, I never thought that they would be discredited at all. I thought that they were part of that kind of untouchable establishment. But recently, the Republican Party actually wrote a letter about the partisan bias of the SPLC. And it was signed by pretty mainstream, some big names. I didn't write them down, but it was, basically the Republican Party saying that this should not be taken as canon. This has a heavy partisan bias. Does the ADL play a similar role, and why haven't they been regarded kind of in the same way by the mainstream Republicans?
Well, I would say that because the ADL is like explicitly Jewish, explicitly, and in their mission statement, of course, they talk about protecting Israel and being there to defend. I mean, that's what the Anti-Defamation League, a lot of people hear that don't know, and they think, oh, but they're against defamation and they're standing up against defamation. Well, that's not true. They're defaming people on a constant basis. They've defamed me. They've defamed many others. they're standing up against defamation of Israel. That's what it says in their mission statement. That's what they say that they're about. They should be registered as a foreign agent under the FARA, but of course they're not. And this is one of the biggest reasons why, because they're so explicitly Jewish, because it's so explicitly apparent to many people who just dig just beneath the surface about the ADL, that they have people at the head who are Jewish, and their rhetoric and what they say that they're about, their front that they put on. I think that this is one of the reasons why mainstream conservatives haven't come out overtly against the ADL, but have come out against the SPLC, which is also fairly Jewish, but just more undertone, I would say, than being overt about who they are and what they're about. But the SPLC should be discredited. The SPLC, they are a hate group. The SPLC, the ADL as well. I think the ADL should be discredited. They are not honest. They hide the truth. They are out to serve a particular agenda. They target certain groups of people, especially white people and white conservatives. And they are radicalizing people to attack us and to kill us. And so they should be considered one of these groups as well. They should be called out by mainstream conservatives.
Yeah, apparently apparently the glitch, by the way, if you reload, it works. So they're probably messing with this, but
that's what some are saying.
Yeah.
But
it is what it is. Either way, the playback will, I'll have the file, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, just post it later. Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting. They actually, I know back in the 90s, the ADL almost went down with some sort of spying scandal. Do you know anything about that?
No, I haven't heard of that, actually.
Yeah, I think it was 1991. They were actually, it appeared like they were, I'm working on some research now because I'm going to write a piece on it, but they evidently were basically doing spy work on behalf of the FBI.
Oh, the first thing I look up 1991 ADL spying for Israel, and then the first thing I see is Pat Buchanan's profile on the ADL, and they call him, as an author, media figure, and political commentator, Patrick Buchanan publicly espouses racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-Israel and anti-immigrant views. Yeah, I don't see anything about the ADL spying thing.
Okay, well, I have to send that to you later. That might be something to rehash for the Red Elephants. So, but apparently there was some big scandal where they were basically spying on behalf of the FBI, and it's got seems to be pigeonholed in the memory, but it happens. So, but do you know of any actual ties to? I know you said that they should be registered as a foreign agent. Do they have any ties that you know of to the like Mossad or the state of Israel?
I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of things that we can uncover if we just look into that. I mean, it's just so apparent. It's like, as soon as you look into it, I'm sure you're going to find something. Well, here's the thing. If we look at the Canary mission, I think isn't it run in Israel, if I'm not mistaken? The Canary mission was donated to with ADL money. The ADL helped fund the Canary mission. The Canary mission spies on American citizens, spies particularly on American citizens who are in universities, who are in college right now, and shows their faces and publishes what they say about Israel. If they defame Israel in any way, if they criticize Israel in any way, they are exposed on this Canary mission website. And it's mostly leftists, a lot of Muslims, who are listed on this site, but this site in part has been funded by the ADL. So they're funding, if they're not directly tied to these sorts of things, they're helping, they're funding a lot of these groups and a lot of these organizations that are directly tied to the state of Israel. And so this is the reason. But, we've seen this all the time. And Israel operates, according to U.S. officials, throughout history, they've operated the most egregious spying operation on the United States of America, even more than the Soviets. And there was an article that just came out of from Politico, maybe about a year ago or less than a year ago, that said that Israel was placing spy devices around the White House to spy on President Trump. They've done this throughout. I mean, there's so many different examples that we can go back to where we can tie it into the ADL and some of these other groups, the Israel lobby, AIPAC. Look at some of the people who were caught, who were arrested for spying for Israel, passing secrets to Israel. Jonathan Pollard is one, Douglas Feith, so I guess to answer your question, it's pretty apparent that the ADL has a deep connection to the state of Israel and is not pro-America in any way, shape, or form. In the first two amendments of the United States Constitution, they're against free speech in particular. They have gotten control somehow of most of these social media companies and sort of inched their way into these social media companies in order to coerce them into banning the speech that they don't like and the speakers that they don't like. And it's become a major problem. And so I was one of these names on the ADL list, one of the last remaining names on the ADL list to go down from YouTube. E. Michael Jones was another one, a few others. Most everyone off that list has been kicked off of the platform, and they're trying hard to get others kicked off as well, including from Facebook and Instagram. And that whole boycott against Facebook was started by the ADL. And so it's a problem, and it certainly should be acknowledged by the Republican Party as much as they acknowledge the SPLC and other groups.
So there's an obvious double standard here. If this was any other country, like especially if Russia was doing the things that Israel gets away with here, it would be an incredible scandal, and it already is for nothing. But why is I don't even know if I should ask this, but why is what creates this double standard? Is it maybe like the evangelical affinity for Israel? Is it some sort of weird theological attachment based out of Protestantism? Or is it just because they control the media? Is it that simple?
Are you asking what? Are you asking why conservatives, why a lot of Republicans support the ADL or support I don't think that they support I don't think. No,
what is it that, like, they're beyond criticism, obviously. Like, if we criticize any of the actions of really anything connected to Israel in the United States, you're anti-Semitic. So that's the brand. They target you, they ban you. So I'm asking, what is it? Is it just that they're in positions of power? Or is there I'm asking what force is behind that double standard, I guess, is my question.
Well, I would say that if we're talking about in terms of the Republican Party and why they support the state of Israel, even though they have done so many things that really reveal that they're not our greatest ally, definitely not our greatest ally, but not even an ally. Actually, I would go as far as to say that. I think the reason why the Republican Party supports them is because of the Israel lobby. The Israel lobby is the most powerful lobby in the United States government. And a lot of people will say, well, actually, if we look at it in terms of dollars, well, they're actually not the most powerful. And, here's the most powerful. It's not true. You have to look at all of the different sections, the different arms, the different tentacles of the Israel lobby, all of the other organizations that are funneling money into politics. They're definitely the most powerful lobby, because you have to consider you have the Zionist Organization of America, you have the Evangelical Zionist, you have the Christian Zionist in Kufi, you have AIPAC, you have all these other different groups that are all part of this Israel lobby. And all of the money coming from these different groups, and even outside of them, that are flowing to both Republicans and Democrats. And so you'll find that on both sides of the aisle, this is the one position that on both sides of the aisle, everyone agrees on. Very magically, everyone agrees on this, even though we look at some of the things that have happened throughout the past, and how much of a I would say really an enemy Israel is to our interests in a lot of different ways, geopolitically and otherwise. I would say that this is the reason why they support them. And there was someone who was part of Congress. I think his name was Jim Moran, and he served in Congress for multiple decades. He said that people in Congress are expected to fill out a questionnaire to prove how much they support Israel. And if they in any way deviate from the standard route that everyone else takes, then the Israel lobby will fund candidates that are going to oppose them in the election, and they will make sure that they will flood millions of dollars to the campaign of that candidate to oppose the person who supposedly doesn't support Israel. Now, of course, this doesn't work out all the time. I think there are some times that people get in there that aren't too fond of Israel, the state of Israel, some of the actions that they're taking, mostly left-wing people. But, I mean, these are some of the things that are going on. Steve Rosen, who was an employee for AIPAC, he said that he boasted, he said, I can have the signature of 70 senators on a cocktail napkin, on a blank cocktail napkin if I wanted to. And this is just the power that they boast about that they have in government. And then in terms of like your average everyday civilian like me, who's maybe a content creator, maybe considered a public figure, which is just a legal way of saying that I can't sue them if they defame me. The reason why I would say that they call us anti-Semitic for talking about things like we're talking about right now is because they have gained so much power over the past many decades, and they have, their definition of anti-Semitism on the State Department's website. And this term, anti-Semitism, as we all know, is just a way to shut down criticism of something that cannot be criticized in society. Everything else, you can talk about everything else, and especially white people, as we learned with Nick Cannon recently. But the moment that you mention Israel or you mention Jewish people, or have some criticism for that particular group of people, you are shut down immediately and sent to a re-education camp to change your ways and to make sure that you change your ways. And so it's a problem. It's definitely a problem. And it's vehemently, explicitly anti-American. It's anti-American. And I think that the people who say that they support the First Amendment should stand up against this.
Well, Vince, since you're already banned from YouTube, and since you're briefly here between the clicks and the blackouts, what are some of your criticisms that we're not allowed to talk about?
My criticisms of Israel?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
yes.
I
might as well dive in.
Well, I basically sort of laid them all out there. I mean, I don't care if Israel exists. Honestly, I don't even care what they do by themselves. I just don't want to get dragged into their wars anymore. I don't want Americans to die for Israel. I don't want to go to these wars for Israel, pushed for by the Israel lobby and other think tanks that are consisted of neocons, Jewish neocons, mostly like Bill Kristol and Robert Kagan and otherwise. I don't want our think tanks here in America to be able to lobby for more foreign wars for Israel and for the benefit of Israel. And this is basically one of the major criticisms, if not the main criticism that I have for the state of Israel. I just don't want our American soldiers to go and die in a war that is really not necessary for the interest of the United States of America and more beneficial to who they call our greatest ally. I don't want to shed American blood anymore in these foreign, never-ending wars for a country that's not ours. And then also we could look at the funding. We could look at the $3 billion a year, but even outside of $3 billion a year, it's probably more like $10 billion a year in multiple ways. We don't have to really get into how I come up with that number. It'll take a long time. But if we look at like all of the foreign aid that goes to Israel, and then also the foreign aid that goes to Egypt and Jordan and the other countries that are basically where we're basically paying these countries off in order to have good behavior towards Israel. The reason why a lot of people bring up the Egypt thing, right? A lot of people say, well, we give more money to Egypt, or we give the same amount of money to Egypt every year. What's your thing with Israel? Why are you only pointing out Israel? The reason why we give the billions of dollars to Egypt is so they don't mess with Israel. That's the only reason why. And we've had to get dragged into wars constantly, not just with, if we're just talking about Iraq, Afghanistan. Let's look at the invasion of the invasion of many countries, of course, by Israel. But let's look at the 6-Day War. Let's look at how we got dragged into that, and how, you know, there was a Marine base that was attacked that killed 245 Marines because we got dragged into that particular war. You know, it just goes on and on and on and on. I can go many different ways with this, but of course, we only have a limited amount of time, and I'm sure you want to get onto something else. There are many criticisms, I guess, to say the least.
Well, Brother Augustine, who actually has a good YouTube channel, and sure that'd be a good connection for you. But he says, with anti-Semitism already on the rise, is now really the time to ban usury and porn?
Because banning usury and porn will increase anti-Semitism. Is that what he's suggesting? I think never. We've already should have banned a lot of these different things that I'm calling for bans of on my show. But I think that's more of like a joking question, right? He's being
well, he's actually he's actually a convert from Judaism to Orthodox Christianity, but I think he's implying that usury and pornography are a Jewish conspiracy themselves. I think is what he's implying there, and I don't know. I mean, he's the one that he's Jewish. He's Jewish by blood, so maybe he would know better than I do. So, but yeah. So, is there what? I mean, the ADL is interesting. They also seem to have, you know, another political agenda that is beyond just defending Israel and defamation of such. You know, they're fighting anti-Semitism, combating hate, protecting communities, confronting discrimination, securing justice, standing up for Israel, promoting respectful schools and communities, whatever that means. So what are they involved in, just kind of beyond, you know, calling out the hateful? Oh, look, there I am on your computer.
Yeah, I don't know why that just happened. My whole screen went black there.
Oh.
Huh. Let me pull this down.
That's cool. It doesn't really bother me.
Oh yeah, I got to see it though. I wanted to see the. I popped out the chat so I can see it.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. My main monitor just went black. I don't know why that happened. Anyway, some of the things that the ADL are involved in outside of you know, some of the things that they say that they're about. I mean, we basically just talked about it, right? They're involved with organizations like the Canary Mission, with doxing U.S. citizens. We talked about their spying thing in San Francisco back in 1993, which I don't know too much about, by the way. You just mentioned, I just looked it up. I'm gonna have to look into this. They're involved in getting involved with big tech, right? They started that boycott against Facebook. They sent out Sacha Baron Cohen to force Facebook to censor more than they're already censoring. They created the online hate index, and in partnership with Berkeley's D Lab, in order to create an algorithm or a code or something like this that would be implemented across social media platforms in order to detect hate speech and ban that hate speech. They're constantly making lists of people that they consider, you know, thought criminals to ban from these social media platforms, and magically somehow these people are banned from these social media platforms just after they make these lists. I was one of these people. And they're involved in many things outside of the things that they say that they're about, and most of the things that they say that they're about are just fake, are just false. It's just a front that they put up.
Yeah, I guess my question is, what are they advocating for besides just, you know, protecting any sort of other than just defending Israel and smearing anyone with criticism of, like, what are they actually advocating for?
Well, they are advocating, well, most of the time, the ads that I see from Jonathan Greenblatt, who is the dude in charge over there at the ADL, or the face, I guess. Most of the time when I see his ads, he's talking about white supremacy and white nationalism and things like this. It's just so crazy to me, because I guess it's not crazy. It makes a lot of sense. They have like this deep-seated hatred for white Americans, and especially white conservatives. But it's really a giant double standard that they're talking about this. First of all, it's not true that the biggest threat of violence are white nationalists or white supremacists. It's just not true. When you break down the data from the Department of Homeland Security, you can see that black nationalists commit more attacks than white nationalists do, despite them only making up a sliver of the population. If we put this in a per 100,000 rate, black nationalists, black Americans represent, I think that they're represented, they're vastly overrepresented, but I think that their representation is something like the per 100,000 rate is over. I think it's more than 3 times the amount of white Americans in terms of domestic terror attacks, or what they consider to be domestic terror attacks, according to the GAO report in the Department of Homeland Security. But even that, I think it's even much higher, because when you look at the numbers and what they call like a white supremacist attack, they include things that happen in prison, like where someone who's part of like a neo-Nazi organization kills some other guy in a prison. Like, this is included in the GAO report. But in any report that you look at, whether it's the Department of Homeland Security or you look at the numbers from the GAO report, you'll see that both Islamists and black nationalists pose a bigger threat to the United States of America than white nationalists do. And it's not even close. But constantly we're seeing these ads. And then they're Jewish. They say they advocate for Israel and for the Jewish people, but it's not white people who are attacking Jews in the streets, in these random attacks. In New York City, especially, is where these things happen. Most of these things happen. It's black Americans who are attacking Jews in the streets, but they don't talk about that because they consider them to be one of these marginalized groups and also a proxy warrior in this culture war to help further, the broader agenda. And so, I mean, there's just so many things that we can say about organizations like the ADL, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure you want to move on.
A few questions coming in through Entropy. How do you believe that the great Satan will ever allow America First to hold any real power? The Israel lobby controls everything.
Well, I think that I said this on my stream today. I think that a lot of when we talk about the culture war, a lot of this is really just a spiritual war, a spiritual battle. And we are on the side. I played this clip of this priest who is calling out the SPLC, calling out Black Lives Matter and things like this, and saying that you cannot be a Christian if you are left-wing. And we're using this term as, some people say, well, this is just a left-right paradigm. Well, we're using this term as people would be described as politically left-wing, right? We can go back to the French Revolution and describe where right and left comes from, but I don't think we need to do that. But he said that you cannot be Christian if you are, and especially Catholic, if you are left-wing. And we listed some of these things out, right? We listed some of the things that these people push for and that these people defend. And this includes the ADL, by the way. Pedophilia, gay marriage, drag queens, sexual liberation, abortion, radicalizing people that leads to people getting viciously attacked in the street, including police officers. People like Desmond is amazing. This Cuties movie that just came out, chemical castration of children. These are the things that these people stand up for. And if we are on the right side of this spiritual battle, this culture war, we will win in the end. It is written, we will win in the end. And I think that with a lot of things going on, this is really the recruiting time. And I don't mean that in like a federal agent type way. What I mean is that people are sort of naturally being recruited to one side or the other in seeing this lawlessness that is in the streets, right? Seeing this, I think they overplayed their hand. This is a term that I use often. These people have overplayed their hand. They expect a certain result, and they're not getting that exact same result. And people I think it's being exposed that what a lot of these different parts of this are about and what they push for and what their end goal is. And so seeing this lawlessness in the street getting completely brushed aside by many people in government and many Democrat politicians, this has really exposed people to what's really going on. And this is causing sort of like a natural recruitment to happen, and people are falling to one side or the other, and the pendulum is swinging back. And I think that as long as we play this strategically, as long as we don't react too emotionally and get something to happen to where, you know, this sort of just breaks down all of the ground that we might gain, I think that we will be looking pretty positive in the end. It doesn't seem like it now, but I think that we just have to wait and see. I guess that's what I would say to that question.
Yeah, no, that's a excellent answer. I think it's almost with what you just said. I was thinking about this earlier. It's like there will be no more normies. People are just either going to the other side, one side or the other. There'll be no more just kind of naive normies anymore. It'll just be you're either with us or you're with them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think people are being, and you know, this is actually drawn out in a lot of the data. If we look at the political affiliation and we look at how it's spreading apart and we look at the center completely collapsing, I think you're right. And especially with like sports gone, right? Sports is gone. And so no one really has a place to apply, the males especially, to apply that tribalism that is deeply ingrained in them. And so I think that this is going to happen even quicker than ever before. And I don't think that they're going to like the results of this. I don't think that they can control the internet as much as they think that they can.
Yeah, and I know you're pressed for time. One last question. I never prep anyone for this. I just want to start doing it to everybody. Reading recommendation. First thing that
well, I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's so many.
You gotta do one favorite book.
Just one. Well, I don't have a favorite book.
Ah, come on.
If I can recommend just one book, man, that's hard. That is so hard. Just one book.
People are going to start coming prepped, but it can't be the Bible. Can't be the Bible. That's a done.
Well, yeah, I would say, why not? I would say the Bible. That would be my answer. That would
no. That's a cop out. That's
how is that a cop out?
That's the obvious
number one book. Okay, so that's the obvious number one book.
Yes.
Man, so many good books. I read a few good books just on a plane trip recently. I don't know. I would look into, if we want to talk about like conservatism, I would say look into Russell Kirk. If you want to look at like economics and trade, a good one is one by Ian Fletcher, called Why Free Trade Doesn't Work. If you want to talk about, we've been talking about Israel a lot, so look into The Israel Lobby by John J. Mearsheimer. If you want to something that's more fictional, but something that's becoming more and more reality every day, I would look into The Camp of the Saints.
I haven't heard of that one. What's that one about?
It's about the hordes of third worlders flooding into Western countries and completely destroying them. But it's more like, it's fictional though. But it's not fictional, and it was written a long time ago. It's written a long time ago.
What's the setting? Is that in France or
France? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have heard of that. I should definitely read that. I think I might do that after I
Bowling
finish.
Alone, someone says in the chat, that's a good one by Robert Putnam. It talks about the breakdown of community. Atlas Shrugged. Well, I mean, Atlas Shrugged, if you're just starting out in politics, Atlas Shrugged is pretty decent. Okay. But that's if you're just like starting out.
All right. Well, hey,
I've read Atlas Shrugged. Like I read Atlas Shrugged years and years and years ago. I think we're past the point of sort of like the libertarian message. But go ahead.
Well, there's always Hans Hermann Hoppe for that. He's actually pretty good though, Hans Hermann Hoppe. But so I know we're gonna wrap it up because I know you had the bounce. Where can people find you now and follow your show?
You can find me on dlive.tv/Vincent James live Monday through Friday around 1 p.m. Pacific time. And you can also find me on bitshoot.com/the red elephants for daily videos. Thank you for having me on, man.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you. It was truly an honor. So, all right, guys, hit that like button, subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and, see you on DLive at some point, because with Dr. E. Michael Jones and then Vincent James, I'm sure I won't last long. It was
Definitely
nice.
Right.
But you guys See you next week.